All right, our afternoon general session begins with a parent panel. We are first going to let each of these families introduce themselves, and as you will see, we have pictures of different children on the screen. So enjoy that. It will loop through our entire presentation. So you'll get to see some of the kids that we're talking about today. So thank you. We have 5 panelists with us today. We will let them each introduce themselves. So our first question is, please tell us a little bit about you and your child and how many members are in your family, your child's age, and what they are currently up to. And we're going to start down here. Take it away.
I would love to start. Yeah. So my name is Sarah Hamilton. I'm married to my husband, Eric, and my son, Parker, is my friend with autism, and he is 4. And then I also have a daughter named Nora, and she's 1.5, and Parker is currently in preschool. So what we are currently up to is surviving every single day.
Hello, my name is Emmanuel Calmes. I'm not from here, but my wife is, so we've been living in this community for 20 years, almost. We have 4 kids. The oldest, Louis, is on the spectrum. The other 3 are not. They are either students, one is at the ASU, one is in California, and the last one is at NCHS as a junior.
Thank you. Brian.
Hi, my name is Brian Hensley. I'm married to Audrey, who's sitting back there. Hi, honey. She's ditching work right now. She's not supposed to be here. And we have 4 kids. Our oldest 3 are biological. Grace, 22. Eli is 20. Ava is almost 17. And then our youngest is Silas, who is 15. And we adopted him from Ethiopia when he was 9 months old. And he is on the autism spectrum. Right now, he is a freshman at Normal West Community High School for part of the day, and then he spends other parts of his day at Lifelong Access, getting some ABA therapy and others.
Hello, my name is Brandy Winston. My husband and I have 3 children. Our oldest is Max, and he's back there. He's currently a junior at ISU. And then we have a daughter who is a freshman in college at FIT in New York City. And then our youngest is Satchel, and he is 15, and he's currently at Normal Community High School. And, what are we up to? He is an avid bowler. He loves it.
And phenomenal at it.
And very good. Yes, we went bowling on Saturday, and he bowled a 182. So
He's got some skills.
Hi, my name is Laura Beth Heiser, and my husband is Casey, and we have 2 boys. Cameron, he's 7. He has autism, and Levi is 3. And so Cameron's in 2nd grade this year, and he goes to school every day. He's in an SS classroom of 1st and 2nd graders. And after school, he goes to ABA therapy at Lifelong Access as well. And then he enjoys coming home and being with family and being with, he loves stuffies. Stuffed animals are his thing. We have so many in our house. Those are his favorite things.
You mentioned Lifelong Access. Could you share what that is for members that are here that are not local to our community?
Yes. So Cameron goes to ABA therapy at Lifelong Access. It used to be called Mark First, and then they changed over the name. Thought it was a more fitting name, but Cameron goes there. He rides the bus home, or not home, but he rides the bus there after school. And he's there for about 3 hours receiving services in ABA. And they work on different programs with him and incorporate things that are in his IEP at school. And so he started there when he was in kindergarten, when he was diagnosed. And he goes every day and goes on the weekends for about 4 hours. And we've seen a really big difference in his behaviors and his progress.
Thank you. So it sounds like we have a broad age range where we have young children, middle young, teens, and a young adult. So our next question is, and for some of these you won't have to think back too far, but for others, it was a few years ago. Thinking back to when your child was young, when did you sense that there was something different? Could you please explain the diagnostic process, what that looked like for you, and what age did your child receive the diagnosis? This is a loaded one because there's another question part to it. What services did they receive or did you wish they could have received? Since we started down here, we'll start down on this side.
Wait, this one. Yeah. Okay. So Cameron, when he was born, he had swallowed some meconium and had been in the hospital for a week. And so we did notice some delays with him when he was young. And so we got involved with early intervention with speech and OT and developmental therapy. And he went to early learning here at Brigham. And so we were just kind of keeping an eye on things with him. And then we were just noticing more closer to like around the age 4, where when he was going into like an in-home daycare, and those social cues were harder for him, and knowing like personal space, those things were hard for him to understand. So we talked more to his developmental pediatrician that we had seen when we started early intervention, and went ahead and went through with the process of getting him diagnosed with autism. And then he started his services of ABA therapy after that.
Thank you.
Satchel was born in Mississippi, so things were a little bit different there. I noticed about 18 months old, he just seemed overwhelmed in crowds. So like at an Easter egg hunt, his sister's Valentine's Day party, he just seemed really like just overwhelmed, had meltdowns, but he seemed, as soon as I got him in the car seat, in the car, he was totally fine. Like that pressure just calmed him. So I contacted his pediatrician. She sent us on to a developmental pediatrician. And at that time, he was just diagnosed with developmental delay and speech delay. We received some services in home. They weren't very good in Mississippi, unfortunately. The speech therapist was like, I don't really know how to work with him with speech because he was non-speaking at the time, but he could read. So she did flashcards with him. He could read all the flashcards, but his speech wasn't useful. Like he couldn't say mom or dad or drink or thirsty, but he could read anything. And the OT just came in and she said he had sensory processing disorder. And I was like, well, I don't really know what that means. And she said, just Google it. Well, I was overwhelmed with Googling that. So then we moved to Bloomington. We had great services in Bloomington. And then we did have the official diagnosis right before he turned 3. And then we started with all the therapies: speech, OT, ABA, feeding therapy. We did play therapy, floor time therapy. And then I had always thought maybe my older son was on the spectrum. I just couldn't get school to get on board with me. So then at 9, we had him evaluated. And the first evaluation, they said it's just anxiety. And he couldn't get even through the anxiety diagnostic tool. And so then they said, let's just go ahead and do the DSM with him. So we did that. And then that's when they diagnosed him too with autism. So, and then with him, he did more play-based, more social groups. So
for Satchel, from the first time that you started recognizing there might be some differences or you had some red flags, how long did it take until you got that formal diagnosis?
So I recognized about 18 months that there was something different, and it was almost until he was 3 before he got that formal diagnosis. And it could have been a little bit of a delay because we did move during that process. So that could have been a little bit of the reason why we had a little bit of the delay. But if I think back, there were signs from the time he was born. He was a terrible nurser. He couldn't stand like nursing and then looking at me while he was nursing. He pulled off all the time. And also he was so fascinated with ceiling fans. He could lay on the bed under a ceiling fan for an hour and be so happy. So those were signs at a really young age, probably 4 months old.
And then for Max, were there different signs that you would say? You said anxiety. Was there anything else that?
Yes, for Max, I felt like socially his peers continued to grow and their interests changed, and he was still just loved Thomas the Tank Engine at 5 and at 6 and at 7. Those were his interests, and his friends' interests were changing. And he's such a good kid. And I would say to his teachers, like, I really think he's on the spectrum. And they would say, and this was Mississippi, and they would say, oh, but he's just so good. He's just a rule follower. I'm like, yeah, he's a rule follower. And he's on the spectrum. And I just couldn't get them to agree. And then we moved here, and I still had a little bit of a pushback from the schools here. And I finally actually just went and had a medical diagnosis. And then I took that to the school, and that was how I was able to get him diagnosed.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with Silas, there's a lot of similarities to what you just heard, but the biggest difference with Silas is that when we adopted him, we found out when he went to the orphanage at 6 months old, he only weighed 4 pounds. So when we brought him home at 9 months, he did weigh 16 pounds. When he went to the orphanage, they really started feeding him and making sure he had the nutrients and everything that he needed. But, we knew that there were some developmental delays already built in because of his stay at the orphanage and the lack of nutrients in his first 3 months of life, et cetera, et cetera. So, we started seeing some signs probably about 18 months, very similar to what you've heard, some lack of speech and language development. He actually showed some spikes. So, we really weren't sure exactly what was going on because we would feel like he was grasping some language and getting on a phone and talking. And then the next week, it's like he didn't know how to say anything. So we started doing in-home speech therapy, OT. We used the Autism place here at ISU. He was in the Sprouts program. He had a developmental therapist. I mean, we ran him through the gamut of all of the therapies. We brought him here to the speech clinic at ISU weekly when he was 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. But our doctor was hesitant to give him the autism diagnosis because of his early life. So we actually were able to get him an IEP at 3 to start ECE as a developmental delay. And then over the course of that year or so, when he was actually socialized in school, we were able to share data of what he was doing compared to his peers, some social things, some speech things. Then we were able to get the autism diagnosis, which opens we were really pushing for the autism diagnosis. I know there are a lot of people that are afraid to do that. We're the exact opposite. We wanted to get that autism diagnosis because it literally opens the door to so many opportunities for you and your family. So once we were able to get that autism diagnosis at 3, we moved him into the public schools. And
you guys weren't in Bloomington Normal at that time. You were in a more rural community.
For his 3-year-old year, 2.5 to 3-year-old, yes. So actually, we had moved away for personal reasons for a year, and amongst many reasons, but one of the major reasons we moved back to Bloomington Normal area was because of all the services that he was already getting, and that we saw where we were at. There was no way they were going to be able to meet his needs at 2, 3, 4 years old. So we talked about like the services that he received. I think we're very fortunate, and Brady touched upon this too, comparing it to Mississippi. Bloomington Normal and autism community is very supportive, and we've been very lucky with all the resources we've been able to find, the therapies and the people we worked with.
Thank you. Emmanuel.
Yes, so Louis is 23, and I'm not sure I mentioned that. So we're going to come back 20-some years, and not only that, but different country, because we were living in Europe at the time. So we started noticing something was off around 18 months. when he stopped babbling, and the sound that he was making didn't correspond to anything. So he was not making eye contact anymore. He stopped imitating play. So we said that something is off. His birth was a little complicated, and that's probably played into that. But the first 18 months, that was our first child, so we didn't know any better. So we thought it was okay. But then at 18 months, we figured out we should take him to a doctor or doctors, because we've been to a lot of doctors, and because the diagnosis was ranging from he's doing that on purpose, strict enough, to he's not going to be functional, you have to put it in an institution. So pretty wide.
Did you catch that? Put him into an institution?
Yeah. So again, 20 years ago, France, so not as advanced as today. So around, after seeing a dozen doctors, I would say, so one of them suggested, hey, have you heard of this thing called autism? That might be something. I'm not a specialist, but I can refer to some doctor that knows a lot about that. So we took him to that doctor, and he said, yeah, it looks like he's in the spectrum. So that's when we started ABA therapy on a daily basis, speech therapy, because it was, as I mentioned, non-verbal. And so we did that for 2 years until he was 4. And 4 is when in France you start going to school. And we were told, no way, he's not going to school, he's not going to go to school. You have to find another place for him to go. And my wife said, look, this is BS. If we go to my country, he will go to school, he will have an IEP. And so we packed our luggages and came here. And then we've been here since.
Thank you.
I just laugh that it says thinking back to when your child is young. I'm like, my child still is very young.
You are there.
Yes, I'm in the thick of it right now, but that's okay. I feel like my process of figuring things out with Parker was interesting because I share 2 roles. So obviously I'm a mom, but I'm also a speech therapist. So it's like its own form of torture of knowing what you know and then seeing it in your own child and being like, But also when I started to notice around the time he was a little over 18 months, I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter. And I kind of knew in my mind, I was like, you know what, I can do one thing at a time. And having a baby is my priority right now. So I'm just going to kind of put that in my back pocket, because if he's autistic now, he's going to be autistic in the future. So trying to juggle all of that at once was not my priority. So my daughter was born, we kind of got settled with her. And so I knew, I was like, he's going to need speech, he's going to need OT, he's going to need all these things. We hadn't got into early intervention services because the wait list was super, super long, as a lot of you probably know. And so finally, right before his 3rd birthday, we did speech evals, we did OT evals, we did the developmental therapy. And I was like, he's going to qualify, I know he is. And so then we did all of that. We got the autism diagnosis, and then it was like, boom, EI done, because he turned 3, and then we had to jump immediately into the school evaluation. So I was like, my head is like a tornado right now.
What was that process like? Because earlier intervention has a little bit of a different focus than does when you enter the school system.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I know what early intervention is, I know what they're going to do, so I kind of in the back of my mind knew like it's going to be more home-based, and then they're going to transition it to school, and I know that they're going to try to make it more like functional play and academic, pre-academic as much as a 3-year-old can do. So I kind of knew that process was going to happen, but for me, it was just a lot because I don't even remember the time frame, but it was just all at once, one thing after another. And you as a parent, like, you know your child and you know they have strengths, but during the evaluation process, inevitably they kind of have to ask you, like, so what is it that you're concerned about? So one day after another, to another professional, yes, I know he can't do this. Yes, I know he can't do that. Yes, I know he struggles with that. And after a while, you're just like, oh, can you all just like get on the same page? Like, can we all just like communicate so I don't have to keep like reopening that wound one day after another? But then eventually it was like, okay, we're done with all of that. He's in preschool, he has his IEP, and like I was a school-based speech therapist for many years, so like I knew the IEP process. So it was nothing surprising to me. But when it's your own kid, it's just a little bit different. So that was kind of our process, you know. And he's getting speech and he's getting OT, and people are like, "Are you going to do speech therapy for him?" And I'm like, "Heck no, I'm his mom." Like, of course, he doesn't want to do anything for me. I'm his mom. He just wants to, you know, play by himself at home. So it's just so nice to have other therapists who are able to work with him and support him too. So
Thank you.
process.
All right, our next question is, how has your child changed since first being diagnosed? In what areas do you feel your child now excels? And what might be some other areas that still require significant support? And I'm going to start with you, Emmanuel.
Sure. So, so his receptive and expressive functional language has improved greatly. He was barely making any sound, and through daily speech session with the same therapist for the last 19 years. So he is now able to express himself, to understand us, not long sentences, but enough to function. So that's a big change, or I would say improvement. So he's also able to focus more on tasks and complete this task, and which is really helpful for his work. And we're going to talk about this later. So now on what is still not there or still struggling with is social cues and interactions. They are still pretty limited, so that's something that is going to take more time to get where he would like to be, if ever. But that's it.
Thank you. We'll start with Brandy, because Satchel's a little older than Silas.
I need this. Okay. When Satchel was first diagnosed, he was considered non-speaking, and he's very verbal now. He's changed a lot. When he was first diagnosed, we started with floor time therapy, and we were really able to work really hard to get him into our world. And with that came a lot of awareness and a lot of behaviors. I think just the more he was aware of his world and his surroundings, we had a lot of behaviors, a lot of aggression. Started with scratching, and he always went for his sister's hair. And we taught both Max and Quincy to run to their room and lock themselves in their room because he was so aggressive. He's not aggressive anymore. So he's not been aggressive at home for a long time. He did have some aggression at school. We haven't seen it in high school, which has been really wonderful. He has a really good high school. He is very independent. He has a lot of tasks he does at home. He does his own laundry. He puts his own laundry away. His job is to unload the dishwasher. He mops. He cleans bathrooms.
He has his own YouTube channel.
He has his own YouTube channel. So he's changed a lot, and he still has like certain things that he likes to do with certain family members. So like I'm the one who always plays Rummy Cube with him. Sometimes he'll let his sister, every great once in a while, he'll let his brother. They have a couple video games they like to play together. So he still utilizes people to meet his needs, but he's interacting with them so much more. So that's changed a lot. And for Max, Max met his people. So in high school, he met his friends, and he has the best group of friends in high school. And he didn't have that in middle school. Middle school was horrible for him. So I would say for Max that he's so much more social now, independent. He's going to college. He's a 4.0 student. He, in fact, said to me, which is very insightful because he's very smart. But he said to me, I really wish that I had gotten rid of my IEP my senior year because I think I became too dependent on it. And so when I got to college, I really felt like I still needed it. And if I would have not had it in my senior year of high school, I think that it would have been an easier transition for me in college. So
That's profound.
yeah, he's really smart kid.
Thank you.
Which way are we going?
We'll do Brian because Silas is next in age.
Okay.
So Silas is on the screen. So Silas is 15 now, and Silas is. We still bathe him. We have to still bathe or shower. I mean, he can sit in the bath, but we still clean him. We still dress him, put deodorant on, brush his teeth. So one of the biggest changes has been puberty's been interesting. As you can
Interesting.
imagine.
In what ways?
I'm not going there.
All kids still go through puberty.
Anyway, so, when Silas is, Silas is still really who he's always been. He's always had this really big smile, this huge belly laugh. He's absolutely loves on everybody. He loves physical touch. He loves squeezes. He brings a lot of joy to the people. Almost everybody that meets Silas loves Silas. So a lot of who he is as a person is very much the same. What he excels at, other than really making people happy, is he's an absolute wizard on Temple Run on the iPad.
Amazing.
I see some ladies in the back who work with him, right? Crazy, huh? And he'll put anybody to sleep with Temple Run in here, I guarantee it. But
You can see him approaching the end of a place, and you think he's going to go straight into the water, and he's amazing.
yeah, it's pretty crazy, but he can do that with his iPad. He uses his talk. We call it a talker. I know that's not what's the term?
It depends. It's his device.
Device. We'll go with device. We call it his talker, but I mean, he can get whatever he wants and needs through his talker. Although we do consider him nonverbal, he still has language. If it's something of interest to him, like pop or popcorn or food or iPad or whatever, he has no problem requesting that. He's not going to have a conversation with you for the most part. He's not going to speak in sentences, but he meets his needs for communication through verbal and through his device. So that's been a huge progression for him over the years. Areas that still require significant support. I mean, Silas is always going to have to live with somebody. He's never going to be on his own. Brandy's talking about how her kids have chores and jobs, which is awesome. Silas he'll never be able to do that. And, it took us some time as parents to realize that, and that's a really hard reality to get to. But once we got there, and sometimes that's still hard planning for the future, we just know that now, so we can start looking for and planning for that and working with him towards that. At home, we lock our refrigerator doors and we lock our bathrooms, not because he's dangerous, but if we leave the cabinets or the refrigerator open, he'll eat everything just because he likes to eat, or he'll flood the bathtub because he loves baths. And although he knows how to put the plug in, he's really lazy sometimes, so he'll just lay in the bath and let it go. So, he's always going to need someone. We never leave him alone for the most part in the house. One of the reasons why we allow him to have an iPad sometimes is if we want to sit in the living room and he wants to go upstairs to our room because he sleeps in our room, we can still hear the iPad so we know he's in our room. So, yeah.
Thank you. Moving on.
So I would say that since Cameron was diagnosed, he's made a lot of progress with his speech, with his expressive and receptive language. It was really hard for him. Like he could talk and communicate when he was younger, but when he wasn't able to, he'd get frustrated and cry, and I would feel like, I don't know, what do you want? And eating was really hard for him too. We went through feeding therapy when we did early intervention. food is really hard for him. He has like a handful of things that he will eat, and it's the same things every day. Like I pack the same lunch every day for him at school. It's the same thing. I mean, it makes it packing easy. I don't have to think about what am I going to send, but it's very hard for him. He will even gag if he sees certain foods that like his classmates might have, or something that like we might be eating. So it makes dinner time hard because I'm making, Cameron's food, and then sometimes I have a picky toddler and making him something different. So that's something that we're still working on, but he really has made a lot of progress with his speech. Cameron will script a lot of shows that he likes to watch. He'll usually, and he talks to himself a lot with that scripting, like when we're riding in the car, he's having a conversation with himself with, talking about the different characters, but he'll even communicate sometimes through that way, or he can communicate his wants and needs. Like he'll say, "Mommy, hungry," and I'll be like, "Okay, well, tell me what you want." And he'll say noodles and milk. Sometimes like that's what he says, but he doesn't always mean it, but that's his like safety. Like he knows he likes those things. So that's another thing that's kind of a struggle. Because he'll ask for that and I'll make it and then he doesn't want it, or he might start gagging at it if I put too many noodles into the bowl. So that's something that can be hard, but that we're still working on. He's made a lot of progress, I feel like, at school and in ABA with his listening. That was something we struggled with when he was younger, listening and just understanding. I feel like he would get frustrated and have little meltdowns and cry for long periods of time. But I feel like, we use the like first this, then that a lot with him, or showing him, having him repeat it back. That really helps as well. And again, with going to ABA therapy, he started that when he was in kindergarten, and he's in second grade now. And he goes over the summer as well. He goes there every day, Monday through Friday, every Saturday. That's really helped him with his progress. I guess one thing that he still needs support in is he usually needs someone with him. He can't be, like you were saying with Silas, he can't be really left alone. So like at home, he might have iPad time while I'm putting his brother down for a nap. Or, if we don't hear him, he might be getting into something. Like he might be getting into the fridge to get an apple. He loves apples. If we left the bowl on the counter, he would take a bite out of all of them. We have to put the bananas on top of the fridge. He'll climb to the top of the fridge to get bananas. And so, or the bathroom, he'll get in there.
Didn't Silas just do
He
that?
might play in the toilet because it's water. He might, he's not thinking, "Ew, that's gross." Also, I'm a kindergarten teacher, so learning is very important to me. And, right now Cameron's in second grade, and he's reading at like a level B. And so there's like letters of the alphabet. And like by then in kindergarten, you want them at like a D. And so sometimes I feel like, am I feeling as a parent that I'm not helping him be where he needs to be, even though, I know he is doing his best and will learn eventually. It's something that, I feel like, did I fail him? I want him to learn. But the thing with Cameron too is if he's not interested, he doesn't care. If he's not interested in it, he's not going to do it. He probably could do it, but if he doesn't have any interest, he's not going to do it. One thing about Cameron that he really excels at is he's just a really happy boy. He's really funny, and he's not even trying to be funny. He's so funny, like the stories I hear from school. I get text messages from his teacher or the support staff there or at ABA therapy, and he's just so funny. And I feel like everybody really loves him that is involved in his life. We love him so much. We love him for who he is and can't imagine, him any differently. But everyone around him he just brings a smile to their faces. Even, the kids like at school in his classroom, but also like the general education children. They love him. They watch out for him. They want to be with him. They include him. And that just really means a lot to us.
Was that number 4 or 5? 4, okay. That was 3, okay. I'm going to skip number 4 in lieu of time. We're just going to move on to number 5. So, how has your community supported and accepted your child? What services have been most helpful? And what has been lacking or disappointing? So we'll start back over here.
I feel like since we're just now kind of like getting into things and like he's just now at the age where he could be participating in some things, one thing that I've noticed that has kind of been disappointing for me at least is like I would love to get him into swim lessons this summer, and there's like adaptive swim lessons for kids that are like 5 and 6 and 7, but not for those younger kids. Or like sports, it's like they always start at like 5 or 6. So I'm like, I would love to put him in t-ball. I'd love to put him in soccer. I'd love to do those things, but I'm like, listen, that's not going to happen. I mean, he would love it. He would just run around everywhere, but like he wouldn't participate. So that's been one of the things as a parent of a young child, just trying to find some more of those like recreational activities that are going to be safe for him and accommodate him. Because when I try to bring him to some other things, it's like, I think people are like accepting and accommodating, but they, at the same time, if they don't know you and they don't know your kid, they kind of look at you like, why is your kid like not doing X, Y, and Z? Or like parents look at you, whatever. And I don't know what their intentions are. I don't ask them. I don't really care to know anyway. But that's been something that at least I've just been kind of looking into is I'm like, I need some more support for my kid that's like out of early intervention, but is just starting school. And like, I just, those kinds of activities. So that's sort of where I've been a little disappointed. But I feel like in terms of therapy services, I mean, my God, my son's therapists and teachers are like my best friends. And I know that most of you guys are teachers and you guys are angels, seriously. I mean, also working in the schools, I mean, I see what you guys do and you guys do the utmost work for kids. And I know sometimes parents are a little bit more, not aggressive, that's not the right word, but they're trying to defend their kid and they're trying to say this, that, or that, or whatever. But I mean, I feel like in my experience, my kids' teachers and therapists have been awesome and have saved me many days. So you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Sure, we'll go down the line.
All right, so to piggyback on what my neighbor was saying, the first thought goes to the special educators and the specialists and the therapists, that cared about him and invested so much in his success. Then the paraprofessionals, such as the school aides and the job coaches. And since I'm talking about job coaches, I like to mention the VTAP program, which goes for a vocational transition assistance program that starts in high school until the child turns 22. And thanks to that program, today, Louis has a job. He's been able to intern at the company that hired him through that program. So super helpful, very great opportunity, and we are very thankful for that. Couple more shout outs. Best Buddy program. You might have seen one of the picture of Louis in a tux. He's actually was the best man, had his best buddy, Emma. So that was 6 months ago. And again, he was able to develop some great friendship through that program. And then Autism McLean also is to us has been a great source of social interaction, entertainment options, through camps, activities, to just name a few.
Thank you.
I would say, for the most part, we felt really good about the community support from his doctor from the beginning, throughout all the therapies, from Sprouts to the Autism Place. His in public school with his classroom teachers, with his therapists, he joined what was Mark First over a year ago, now Lifelong Access, and they made a huge difference. We didn't start ABA therapy with Silas till he was 14. I don't know what that would have changed had we done it earlier, but I can tell you it's made a significant difference in a lot of his behaviors, and it continues to. I would say the only thing that's disappointing is that there have been some people who have mistreated him and been allowed to by the people in charge. And when you have a nonverbal child who can't come home and tell you about his day, and they're not going to write notes and tell you what happened that day, that's pretty disappointing.
I think this community is wonderful. We've had such great experiences. All the therapies have been wonderful. I have learned so much from his therapists. We did stop all therapy in 5th grade. We just felt like he really needed a break and just to be able to come home from school and be a kid. We were seeing an increase in behaviors, I think just because he was tired and needed a break. We did, I think, 6 years of feeding therapy, and we gained no foods. So that was disappointing, but it wasn't for lack of trying. But we were able to put foods together that he already had. So like he liked cheese and he liked bread. We were able to make a cheese sandwich. So he had foods that he could eat for lunch. So that was positive. I would say the only thing that I felt disappointing is that there was a disconnect between elementary school and middle school. So in elementary school, they allowed behaviors. They had a safe place for him to go during behaviors. And then we hit middle school on day 5. They said, we don't deal with behaviors. If he has behaviors like this, we will be calling rescue, and he will go in for a psych hold. And I was really disappointed that that was their response on day 5 of school, when that was allowed for 3 years in elementary school. So they allowed a behavior, and to undo a behavior, it was going to take more than 5 days. So I quit teaching and said, no, you won't call rescue, you'll call me. So I am now who they call if he's really upset and needs somebody. So we will not be calling rescue, because he needs, if he ever needed an ambulance, I need him to be able to go. And I didn't want the ambulance to become something negative for him. So, and thanks to COVID, he got 1.5 years off from school in middle school, which we needed. So I was glad for that. Glad for that break. I know COVID.
Let me clarify. He did not get 1.5 years off of school.
He got 1.5 years off from being in that. He got 1.5 years off from being in that building.
In the environment,
Yes.
There was still lots of school happening.
Lots of school.
That was occurring, and you did a beautiful job programming and making it work for him. You did. I obviously know many of these families.
So I would say that, like, all the services we've gotten with Cameron, with, speech, when we did OT, feeding therapy, all those were very helpful. ABA has been very helpful. The school has been great. So he was in early learning for 2 years, and then he's been at Pepper kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade. And I feel like just everybody, like I said earlier, everyone really embraces him. In his classroom, like he's in his smaller class, but then he does push in with the gen ed classrooms. So he goes to like music, art, PE, library with them as well. And then he gets to go to their morning meeting in 2nd grade. And I feel like the 2nd grade teacher, I got to meet her at his meeting last month, and she just has really embraced him and makes him feel included. And one thing that one of the paras shared with me, a story about Cameron going there, was on Fridays they do a circle where one of the students gets to sit in the middle of the circle, and then all the kids go around and say something that they like about that student. And Cameron got picked, and he got to be in the middle, and they said how much, how funny he is, how they make him, how he makes them laugh, how he's happy. And it just made me feel so good to know that he's being included and a part of their classroom, and it means a lot. that she includes him as well. I've also enjoyed him being in Special Olympics. He's gotten to do that through school. So it was fun to get to watch him participate in that. Cameron's not really a sporty person. I don't think he ever will be. But it was fun to see him participate in that. It's usually at Central Catholic, and so last year it was raining, it was inside, so it was a little different than the year before where they're out on the track and it was hot, and he's like, I don't want to be doing this. But he had a good time, and it was just nice to see the high schoolers, being leaders and role models to those kids, and just seeing the kids have fun and just embracing them. So we haven't really experienced anything disappointing yet. I'm hoping we don't. I feel like everything has gone so well with school. They're very good about communicating. How his day is. He has a form that comes home every day. But again, there are times where I worry, like, Cameron can't come home and tell me what, if anything, happened to him at school, but luckily there's always somebody with him at all times, so that I know he's safe, and if something would happen, that I would be told so.
Beautiful, thank you. I think the next question we have touched on a little bit, so this one might be a briefer response. How have professionals helped and supported you, or in what ways have they maybe disappointed you? And we'll start with Emmanuel.
I think I already mentioned
Yeah.
that. So I'm not going to repeat
Okay.
myself. The only thing that I didn't mention, so I focused on the positive, but on the disappointing part, employment is still is an issue. We have some major local organization that could make a difference, but oftentimes we're seeing that these organizations rather cut a check to a non-profit, to a charity, instead of giving a chance to our children. So that's something that we experienced and that we hope is going to change, because as your kids will grow, eventually for them having a job or an occupation on a daily basis to find a purpose is going to be key, and that's something that's could be improved, could be better, and that what we need to do better as a community.
Thank you. We'll go to Brandy next.
Well, I can just say that Nikki has been a huge resource for our family. She has attended so many of our IEP meetings and fought so hard for Satchel, especially in middle school. And if it wasn't for her, I don't think Satchel would be where he is today. Our IEP is just so solid, and he is doing so well, and I really owe a lot of it to her. And her resources and her knowledge. So, and I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's going to make me cry. All right, Brian. You can pass if you want.
I think I've already gone there.
Beautiful. Sarah.
The only thing I was going to say that I didn't mention before is I feel like the ways that professionals have helped Parker have been fabulous. But the thing that really stood out to me is that Parker obviously needs that help and he needs the support, but my family needed the support too. And I think sometimes, and not all professionals do this, but I think sometimes professionals are so focused on the kid and helping the kid that they forget that the family is the one that's taking the end of that at home all the time. And so the therapists that have been working with Parker are like, Parker's going to be just fine. He's going to be just fine. But what do you need? What kind of supports do you need? Do you need a mom's group to go to? Do you need what is it, right? And I'm going to tear up just thinking about it. Because I feel like that's something that I would never take that for myself to be oh yeah, I'm just I'm fine. I don't need any help. I'm good. I know what I know. It's fine. But the fact that they've been able to support me and my family too has been great. So that's been the most helpful for me.
You've been able to tap into resources. Laura.
Like I said earlier, I feel like school has been really supportive, and they include me in things on what, like how his day is going. They'll send me how his day is going, or send me a picture or something he did that was funny. And also with ABA, I feel like they've had a lot of opportunities, like things in the community, like where we got to go to Raiders Farm, and they had an event there, or they had a Christmas party at the Discovery Museum, and things like that. Going to places like that are hard for Cameron because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people. He's been there before, but there's certain things he wants to go to, and he might run off. And so I feel like, having those opportunities to be out, because we do go places as a family, but it usually has to be like when both parents are there, like mom and dad. It's hard for me to have both my boys because I think Cameron might run off if we go to the playground or whatnot. So I feel like having those experiences where we can go to the pumpkin patch and do those things. And Brooklyn and Ashley, you're back there. I mean, you two are amazing and do so well with him. And like, I love that people that work there that are there, like you're there to support them and are so patient and kind and understanding. And it just really means a lot. And to have those opportunities where, like, if someone's having a meltdown or something, they understand and don't judge. So
Supported through it.
uh-huh.
All right, the next question, we're going to do 2 words. So the question is the future. What are your most positive long-term hopes or plans for your child? And what is your fear? So can you select 1 hope and dream and 1 fear? And we'll start down here. Sure, we'll go straight down the line.
Could you possibly come back to me so I have some time to think about it?
Absolutely.
All right, so the hopes is for him to be able to maintain his employment on a long-term basis and the ability for him to function with minimal supervision. And the fears on the short term is as his siblings are growing up, they are leaving the house, how is he going to, and we are starting to see that already, how is he going to adjust to a household that's empty with no more siblings, just mom and dad? And on a long-term basis, of course, is when we are not there anymore, how he's going to be able to transition to this environment. He has siblings, but we don't want this to be a potential load on his siblings. So that's also a concern, a fear, for the long term, which I believe is the same for most parents.
Yeah, that number 1 fear.
I actually think, just speaking for myself, my most positive long-term hopes and worst fear is probably the same thing. Most positive hopes is that, and I've spoken about Silas's needs, that he's always going to need support. What that's going to look like when Audrey and I aren't around. And is he going to continue to be challenged with his functionality? Is there really going to be lifelong access of people who are going to be there for him and support him and love him, and not to have our older 3 children feel the need or the burden to be those people in their adult lives? And as much as Audrey and I can tell them that they love him so much that we know they'll do that, but we also know that if there is lifelong support and access to Silas, that they will support that and be a part of that, but not feel the burden of being that for him, like his mom and I are.
My hope is that he will be independent. I'm not sure what that will look like. Maybe a little tiny house in our property somewhere. Maybe a mother-in-law suite. I hope he has a job. My worst fear.
That's fine.
is what happens when I die. And I just think I need to live one more day than him. I'm sorry.
And I would say that is the number one fear every parent has. And Jackie Mace, if she's in here, her goal in life is to live one day longer than Austin.
Mine too. Yeah, I'm right there with you. My long-term hope and goal for him is, we want him to be as independent as possible. So that's why, with all the therapies and services like we're doing, like we want him to be independent as possible. Like that's what we want for Cameron. But I'm the same. What's going to happen if something happens to his dad and I? What will happen when he's, when we're not around? That's what I'm really scared of. So that's why, yeah, take it day by day and, watch our health. And like, I think about those things, like I need to take care of myself because I need to take it, but I'm always usually put myself last because, my family's most important to me. Like I want to make sure they're taken care of. And that's my fear is what will happen when we're gone.
Thank you. One last question as we wrap up. What would be one thing you want others to know who are just beginning their journey? And anybody who has
I'm here for the
wants to
answers.
share, go for it. What was that?
I said I'm here for the answers for the people that have been here, done that. I'm going to take some notes for this answer today. So
Beautiful.
think about your good answers you're about to.
I can go really quick because I'm calm now. Just going to say that I feel like your life will forever be changed and for the best. I'm a better human and a better mother because of my boys. They have blessed me and changed me for the best.
So my day job is a school administrator, and for 22 years I worked with adolescents. So when I saw a child with autism, for the most part, they were coming in to the junior high. We're transitioning them and then transitioning them out. The last 2 years, 1+ year, I've been at a pre-K, K1 building. So I'm seeing the beginnings of those autism diagnoses. And I know autism is a scary word. And it's very hard for some people to say, I have a child with autism. He or she is fine. They're just a little different than their peers. The advice I give to parents when I'm pretty sure that we're looking at a child on the spectrum is the quicker you get that medical diagnosis, the more opportunities you're going to have for your family. It's going to open so many more doors for you that you didn't even know were there. And the other thing I would advise is don't be afraid to go in public. Audrey and I were just talking about this morning when we pulled in here. We were talking about a friend set we had when Silas was young that would ask us to go out and do things, and we kept saying no. We kept saying no because Silas is loud, he flaps, he stems, he's different. And I'll speak for me, not her. For me, I felt that was a stigma. I felt like people were looking at us, that we're different, that he's strange and that he's odd. And if it were the younger me, then I would say, what are you looking at? You're strange. He's the normal one. So, I would say don't be afraid. Find families like you. Learn from each other. Find groups. But don't be afraid to adventure out. And if he runs off, you chase after him.
Beautiful. Well said. Anything else to add?
Sure. All right. So as a parent, you have to be your child's biggest and toughest advocate. You have to take the initiative and be an equal and active member of your child's team. Teachers, job aid, therapists, this is your team. You have to be part of this team. Do not delegate, things going to be done. You have to be involved. You have to be patient and resilient when dealing with the state or other administration. Things eventually you will get through, but there's a lot of paperwork that you will have to fill in. There's a lot of forms and so on, and it might take some time. But don't give up. Get help if you need. Talk to other parents. Reach out to support organizations like Autism McLean in order to advise in order to receive advice so you don't burn out, because you are in it for the long term and you will have setbacks. And finally, appreciate and celebrate every small victories and successes.
Thank you.
That was a great answer. Wow, I really like that. I would say two things. I would say, one, you have no idea who your child's going to be in the next few weeks, in the next few months, in the next few years. And I'm telling this to myself right now. Like, there's no point in worrying what your child's going to be like when they're 14, and they're 15, they're 16, they're 20. It's just like you have no idea. And all you can do is focus on what's in front of you right now and focus on the positive. Like you said, celebrate every single one of those small victories. And I think the other thing is, like, people being scared of the diagnosis is your child is the same child as they were yesterday, as they are today, as they are tomorrow. The only thing that changes is your access to resources and you knowing. That's it. That's the only thing it changes. And I think as a parent, that empowers you to know and to tell your child eventually to the point where they can understand, like, you have autism and that makes you different. And that's okay, instead of hiding it and making it seem like it's something that's scary or bad or different. And so I think that there's just power in knowing what resources are out there and how you can help your child. So,
Thank you. First, I want to thank each one of you guys. This is not easy. It's hard to reflect. It's hard to share your stories, and you're amazing for each of that. For all of my educators in the room, how many of you have ever had this level of conversation with your families? I would venture to say some of you have, but it might be something that many of you might consider to do. When we listen to our family stories, we get to learn from them. We get to understand why they might communicate more frequently with us, why they might communicate in a specific way, because they have so many different histories. Some of them from day one have recognized that there's something different with their child, and they had to fight for that diagnosis for years. That enables distrust in professionals because they've had to actively seek out and advocate for their student. And so when they entered the school system and we heard how it switched from a positive, proactive approach to more of a deficit model, that's a huge change. And so I invite you to please reach out, have some of those conversations with your families so that you can build that relationship. I think over the past 10 or 15 years, with understanding more about trauma and where we're at, we understand the importance of relationships. Relationships build trust. When we understand our family stories and we get to learn a little bit more about their perspective and what they have gone through, we have students for sometimes 6.5 hours a day. They go home and the other 18 hours are at home. This just allows us to better understand why our families may do some of the things that we can do and hopefully expand our thinking of how we might be able to support them better. So thank you once again. Thank you guys for listening. We hope this was a good experience for you. Yes, scoop.